Phil, this area of the Frost estate, as I said, it is more like a stepping back in time, but that's caused a problem, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you look at the whole area, if you look at the area around us, in some ways it's like a hidden gem. It's a 1930s estate. There's been very little sort of inappropriate development here, so it's retained a lot of its original character, but it's also retained some of its original problems. When these estates were built in the 30s, the roads were unadopted. Effectively, it's still a private estate with private roads. That means the roads haven't been maintained because obviously it requires the agreement of all the residents and a contribution from all the residents before you can do anything on road maintenance. And if you look around the estate, you'll see there's now real serious issues with drainage, especially in winter, with potholes, with obstructions that have gradually built up, and that's causing real problems for access for residents, but for civic and utilities as well.
Is this a matter of just simply the people getting together and repairing everything for themselves, or is that simply too complicated, so to speak?
Well, in theory, the bottom line is that is the situation. It's a private estate with private roads, and the plot holders are responsible. Legally, it divides up that you're responsible for your own frontage, and that, of course, largely explains the situation why, other than things that individuals have taken on to do themselves in front of their own property, not a great deal has been done for an awfully long time, because getting everyone to club together and agree under that situation is very, very difficult. But the reason it's if you like hitting the headlines now and it's getting critical now is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's starting to get to the stage where it's impossible for refuse collection vehicles, especially for the large vehicles that we're using for doing the 3 bins collection now, to get to parts of this estate, and there are parts they simply can't reach, either because of sort of posts that have been installed that narrow the road down, or because they can't get around some of the corners which have gradually closed in. And whilst that's inconvenient and costly, it's inconvenient for residents and it's costly for the council to do something about it, the scenario that worries me a lot more is if you imagine a fire engine trying to get here down in the night when there's a house on fire with a family in it. Some of these places it would be almost impossible for a large vehicle like that to get down through, and that's the scenario that really worries me, and that's why I think we need to do a little bit more than just think about solving the refuse collection issue.
Have you been on a dust cart to see what it's like?
I did actually. I was out jogging on the estate the other day and I saw one of the dust carts, and I thought it's always better to get information from the horse's mouth, so I had a word with the crew, sat in the cab for a while and saw what the driver was up against. And literally on these roads they have 3 or 4 inches either side of the vehicle. You can do that if you've got the overhang onto verges, but where tall posts have been installed, where stay wires have been installed for telegraph poles, where trees have grown up, it is almost impossible for them to manoeuvre the vehicle. And some of the potholes are large even by the standards of a lorry.
So what happens next?
Well, in some ways it is down to the residents, but I think it's also down to the council to provide some kind of coordination and leadership here, and that's what I'm pushing for as a ward councillor. The bins issue is part of the problem, but ideally we should try and solve more than that. I know attempts have been made before. What the council has the power to do is to get the roads what's called adopted, which means that the council takes on maintenance of the roads, and in many ways that would be the best solution, because it means you could permanently get to the stage where they were properly maintained and access was there all year round. In order to do that, the people currently responsible for the roads, which is the residents here, would have to basically pay to bring the roads up to what's called an adoptable standard. And since the late Mr. Frost passed away, where the estate gets its name from, there has been no coordinating authority to try and do that. So I think the council ought to at least make the offer to try and help the residents club together, bring the roads up to an adoptable standard, do something which still maintains the character of the estate, but nonetheless gets the roads to a point where this access problem is going to be solved for good.